This is a real podcast. You know why? Because it's the Loft Party podcast. I'm just saying.
The views and opinions expressed by the Loft Party podcast panel participants and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the Good Times of Good People Company, the host, or its sponsors.
Just not getting it.
Welcome everybody out there in podcast land. The Good Times with Good People Company proudly presents the Loft Party Podcast, where it is always about good times, good people, and good talk. Now that you've received your invitation, the best way to let us know that you're in attendance is to download the party or become official by joining us on Facebook, subscribing on YouTube, iTunes Podcasts, or Google Play Podcasts. Good. Thanks for joining us. Grab a cocktail, light a cigar, or whatever you like to smoke. Share us with your friends, and make yourself at home. I'm your host and moderator, Rio, and let's introduce today's panel. And hey out there in podcast land, I'm your host, Rio, and welcome to the Loft Party Podcast, episode 87, The American Dream. Or The American Dream? A nice home, a nice car, fine clothes, good jobs, good schools, a pretty wife or a handsome husband, 2.5 kids, a dog, and a white picket fence. Some may say that this sounds like the American dream, but is it the American dream? Whose dream was it? And is the American dream the same as it was before? In the past few weeks, we've seen and heard, and not just past few weeks, over the past year, let's just be really honest, we've heard this administration say a lot of things about a lot of different groups of people. Most recently, probably as we were talking about before the show started, the shithole comments. But it got me to thinking about the Statue of Liberty. And so I want to start the show by, reading, at least a part of the famous quote that's on the tablet of the Statue of Liberty. And of course, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuge of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. So, we got a lot to unpack this episode, but before we get into any of that, let me introduce today's panel. So, I've got my returning champion, Chris O'Connor. He's the owner of Liquid 9 Entertainment and Investments, as well as having some interest in J. Regal Whiskey and Office Works. I've got Big Dave Elliott. He's the owner of CNP Construction. I've got Brian Massey. He's a market analyst for True Media and our resident brain mass. Of course, I've got Adrian Lewis. He is the founder of Path to Vision, an organization that's built to empower our young people as professionals. And before too long, she hasn't made it here yet, we'll be joined by Jackie McDaniel. She is in the financial sector. You may know her as the anonymous female, but she decided she don't want to be anonymous anymore. So that is my panel. And before we get into important things, let's get into important things. And of course, important things around here means, what are we drinking? So first, what we're drinking is probably one of my favorite and one of the most time-honored cocktails out there, the Old Fashioned.
The best one in the Pendergast.
So, you're going to take in a rocks or old fashioned glass. You're going to take a sugar cube. You're going to take a splash of club soda. You're going to do a little lemon peel. You're going to muddle that, and then you're going to add 2 dashes of Angostura bitters, 2 dashes of Pashad bitters, and 2 ounces of J. Regal whiskey. You add ice. You stir that thoroughly, and then garnish that with a little orange peel or zest. and you have a very tasty old-fashioned.
Could also be made with rum.
Can also be made with rum, and we have had it up here several times here at the Pendergast, and it is delicious, let me just say.
From our ex-mixologist.
And that brings us to, now that we know what we're drinking, what are we smoking? And today, we are doing number 3 on the top 25 list from Cigar Aficionado. The Oliva Series V Belicoso. It is a Nicaraguan wrapper, binder, and filler. It's got some really good earthy notes, some leather, a little spice, kind of touch of molasses in the notes with it as well. It's actually a reasonably inexpensive cigar, under $9 generally, and a damn good smoke. Have had several of these over the years, and you can't ever go wrong.
It's a fairly strong-bodied cigar.
Yeah, but you can't go wrong with it.
You cannot go wrong with it. It goes down well.
Yeah, get yourself a good whiskey, a good bourbon, sit down, enjoy this. You'll be happy that you did. Today I'm actually going to bypass RIPs and happy birthdays, only because I got a couple things that I do want to do some quick topics on. One, last week I said that I noticed that we had some listeners from Osaka. I was incorrect. Actually, those listeners are from Tokyo. So, Konnichiwa. I'm not going to say the rest of that. So, Konnichiwa. Anybody out there who is a Dave Chappelle fan, you know what I was going to say. And we are really happy to have all those listeners from Tokyo checking us out here on the podcast. But I wanted to quickly... Yeah.
We're going to have to try some... nice Japanese whiskeys.
We are going to try.
In honor of our podcasters from Tokyo.
We are going to have to. We're going to have to. I mean,
have to get a bottle up here and taste it.
I know that we are sponsored in part by Jay Rieger, but we're going to have to because we've got listeners in Tokyo. We have to.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't feel right. All right,
Mr. O'Connor will approve.
Okay. I didn't want to get super long-winded about it, probably as long-winded as we get about birthdays or RIPs or whatever. But I did want to do some quick talk about the Grammys because that was last night. I don't know how many people here actually watched the Grammys or saw who won. But it was actually a pretty good show. I thought it was going to be more political than it was. It actually, it had moments. It definitely had moments where, you know, some people gave some, not necessarily an acceptance either. It was like kind of people were making kind of statements a little bit through performances and stuff like that. And but there were some good performances. Pink. Normally she does some stuff, you know, like some Cirque du Soleil type shit, but she did something with somebody with sign language, and that was actually kind of a cool performance. Kendrick Lamar opened the show, and he did a medley of some of his songs. One of his songs actually has U2 on the chorus, and he brought U2 out to do their piece on that song, and that was really good. There were some snubs that I won't even say snubs. Some people that didn't win that I was a little surprised they didn't win for something. Like Jay-Z was nominated for several categories, and most of the categories that I thought he would win, I thought he was definitely in contention anyway. Best song, best album, best rap album. He didn't wind up winning any of those categories. Actually, Kendrick Lamar won for best rap album, and kind of big winner of the night though. wound up being Bruno Mars.
Did anybody see Bruno at the Apollo, 24 karat gold at the Apollo?
I did.
Live?
I did.
That
actually.
was a great show, and the way he went back into the neighborhood and sat on the steps, and they did things, went to different restaurants and sat up and sang. I mean, that dude's got it going on. I mean, he's all about the people. He's just not all about himself at all.
He's as class and act. He's as class and act as he really throws you back to kind of old school entertainers.
Oh yeah,
like he's really a real entertainer. He's not a kind of an Instagram entertainer.
The older lady that wore the red dress that he put up on the balcony and then he sang to her. He met her out on the doorstep. Mm-hmm. Oh man, that's classic. You know, that's a good thing.
I heard a pundit say something, our new Michael Jackson, and I thought that might be going far. But I will say this, Bruno hasn't missed yet. And I guess, what is he, 3 or 4 albums deep now? That's not easy to have had reasonably and not just success, but kind of exponential success. Every album's been more successful than the last. That's not easy, I don't think, in today's climate. I mean, the only other person I can think is probably Timberlake or something like that.
I don't think you can compare him to Michael Jackson. I think he's a totally different act.
I think he's
more of a Motown act.
I think he is more. Well, the thing I like about him is he, from album to album, he reinvents the look, the sound, because he really takes all of it as kind of a holistic approach. So the last album was more of a 70s rock type album, and he went with that look. And the album before that was more of a 60s doo-wop type thing. And this was completely immersive in the 90s. Speaking of which, the song he performed, Finesse, and the video for Finesse, some of my favorite stuff on that album, because he's the video is a complete nod to In Living Color, and I was a massive In Living Color fan in the 90s, and so it just the colors, and everybody had on cross colors clothes, and it was it's just fun. That really is what I like about it.
I do have one complaint. Mm-hmm. That I didn't get. I had no idea what this had to do with the Grammys.
Okay.
When they had the certain people, including Hillary Clinton, up reading Fire and Fury. What the heck does that have to do with music?
You get a Grammy for Best Audiobook. Best narrative.
That's still, what the heck does that have to do with music? Yes. I have an issue with that.
But Grammys celebrate all recorded art during the year. So audiobooks, narrative, long form narrative, short form narrative, they all are.
Comedy albums.
They're all Grammy eligible.
I didn't think it was the place for it, and I think they had fairly low viewership compared to each year. They've been dropping down. I think, in particular, the Grammys, we listen to the Grammys for music. We want to see music. My wife made this comment. I used to love to listen to the Grammys, she said, but it's gotten so, they've injected politics into it, and I don't want to watch politics while I'm watching the Grammys. I want to listen to people sing. I want to see their accomplishments and see them get awards for it. And we're older. We're older people.
Yeah,
and I get.
But I will say,
your generation that injected politics into music.
Well, we had protest songs.
I mean, come on.
We had protest songs.
Music and politics have been intertwined since the '60s, and it's inseparable now.
But they were songs. We had protest songs that I liked.
I will say this. I don't think that genie's going back in the box. It's
no, it's not. I get that.
Yeah.
I get it. But like I said, it's become a little different than it was back then.
Yeah, and then too, the artistic community in general is. Now this is what's funny. Despite of genre and even how they vote, they tend to be more liberal thinking if you're an artist. So they tend to think, no matter if it's
I would agree with that.
pro our current administration or pro whatever the situation is, like you say, I think in the 60s when they started doing heavy protest songs, I think it just merged into the culture of art. People put.
But they were protesting government in general for the most part, and the war, and then the bad way they were running the war, and the industrial people that were running the war, and that was more or less what their protest was. They were also protesting racism at that time. It wasn't long after Martin Luther King. So you had,
it sounded like they still protesting the same stuff.
But it was a different type. What I'm trying to state is I do believe that it was a different type of protest back in that day. You look back to Nina Simone and some of the songs she sang about, being poor and the government putting them down. There was a different type of ball game that they played back in that days than what they're doing now, where they're really going after one individual, I think.
Well, that's his fault in their eyes, or maybe in some opinions. I mean, you can't go after an entertainment, NFL, and call them sons of bitches and not expect to get some sort of backlash.
Right.
So, for them, if he's open enough to give his points of view and call grown men that protest in their own peaceful way, then you can expect some.
There's going to be some blowback.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you there, Adrian.
All right. So with all that, we'll be right back.
Hey, you can search for the Loft Party Podcast on iTunes Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, and on our Good Times with Good People YouTube channel. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, tweet us on Twitter, and if you like the content we provide, donate to us on Patreon. www.patreon.com/Loft Party Podcast. You can find all of our links below. And now back to our regularly scheduled program.
And we are back. And before we get too deep, let's play a quick party game. So, if you could live the life of your favorite rock, rap, or pop star for a week, let's go too crazy, for a week, who would you want to trade places with? So, I'm going to give that a second to marinate. Because I see some faces that are really thinking. What do you think, Adrian?
I can't really say I'm envious of anybody's at that level lifestyle at this point. I think, maybe Denzel. He's respected. He's been in the game for a minute. He has respect. He respects the craft. He has a certain demeanor about himself that's respectable. And, yeah, he has longevity in it. So the experience, the respect, he's a master of his craft. Maybe he's not a rapper, but he's an entertainer. So, but
I'll take that. I'll take that.
I can't say I'm with any particular rapper or rock guy at this point, or any pop person at this point.
What do you think, Brain Mass?
I kind of feel the same way. That I don't know that I'm envious of anyone in particular, because it seems like there's a lot of things that come with that aren't necessarily healthy or good.
Well, just to throw out as a disclaimer, this is definitely not coming from a point or place of envy. I would be curious to know, because I agree. I am truly not envious of anybody's life or lifestyle. Yeah. So I don't want to be in their shoes for that reason. But there's a person or two that I probably be curious to know what their life is like.
The thing that crossed my mind is probably maybe an EDM mixer, just because maybe someone like Bass Nectar or Zed, because so many of their songs, they partner up with very famous people, so they get to meet a lot of those people and actually create something together. Mm-hmm. I think that'd be really fun to see, like, that whole process, how they sit down and go through it, because they're not by themselves, which I know most artists aren't by themselves either, but that's very two top level people getting together and saying, let's make something awesome, and that seems like it'd be a fun process.
Yeah, I would agree. What are you thinking, O'Connor?
I would be jealous, and I would switch places for a week in a second with probably Bono, I guess. almost a billionaire. You can be as annoying as you want. People still go to see you.
Is this true?
You can tell him to screw off because you have all the money in the world. And it would just be fun. I just think he seems to have a pretty good life going.
I'm about to say one Irish boy for another Irish boy, huh?
Sure, he's just out having a good time. And he's trying to help people, I guess. I like that part.
Yeah. I'm mad at that. Big Day?
Yeah, I get Bono. That's one of the things that ran through my head. But in my diseased brain, Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. I mean, he grew up in Lake Sunapee, New Hampshire, and still lives up in Lake Sunapee, New Hampshire.
Did not know that.
And we have friends up there, and actually ran into him in a general store up there one time.
Oh, okay.
That was kind of cool. I didn't say nothing to him. I got respect for people. I don't go and bother him, but it was definitely Steven Tyler. But that dude, he's something. He's a highly wired, pretty talented entertainer, and I wouldn't want to live some of the lifestyle he did. Actually, I kind of did at times, but it's it'd be an interesting guy to see what he's all about and how he thinks.
Yeah. So, the question, because Jackie just joined us, is if you could live the life of your favorite rap, rock, or pop star for a week.
Oh, God.
Who would you want to trade places?
You always love these questions, don't you?
Well, I mean, I literally just sat down.
Yeah, it just happened to be your turn when you sat down.
I honestly don't know. I really would have to think about that for a minute.
Okay.
Lindsey Sterling. You can play the violin and run around on stage.
Okay.
I actually know who that is. Just because I've seen.
That does not appeal to me at all.
Well, I was going to bring up Pat Boone, but I didn't think anybody knew who Pat Boone was. So, especially in podcast land,
Right.
Like literally live the life.
You want to talk about white bread?
Just for a week.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I know for me, because we talked about not being envious of people's lives. It would just be interesting. I would probably want to do Jay-Z or Dave Chappelle for a week.
So I thought about Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Now wait a second here, Jackie.
What?
Jay-Z is with Beyonce.
Jay-Z
is with Beyonce.
Definitely on the plus.
So he wants to be with Beyonce for a week here. I'm just
blame him for that. I don't know what
I'm just saying here. There's a little bit more in this game than he was bringing on there.
I think that would appeal to him anyway because they also have a child. And he would love that.
True.
So,
Yeah. No, I would take the whole life. I wouldn't just take the parts I liked.
One of his good friends is Kanye, which,
I would love that too.
Now, I can tell you that would be an interesting one to me is Kanye.
Okay.
For a week.
Okay.
But would you want?
Okay. Would you want? Oh, okay. There you go. That was my second question. That was my second question. Do you want to be Kanye for a week? Like be in his head for a week, or do you just want to kind of live?
I would kind of like to know what's in his head.
Yeah. Well, actually,
because I'm sure.
I could not keep up.
Because I'm sure it's not always what comes out of his mouth.
Yeah.
It'd be like a high-speed ping ball game, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, I kind of agree. I don't think that what comes out of his mouth is probably what goes on in his head the whole time. I think he has moments where that thought is overwhelming and he can't stop it.
People other than like musicians or artists, like I would be interesting to live as Oprah for a week or
Yeah. Yeah, Adrian said Denzel, so yeah.
The only thing that kept me away from Jay-Z is I don't think he could ever walk outside. I mean, he would just be mobbed every single place he went. Where I feel like maybe Bono's a little more anonymous. It's kind of short, blends in with the crowd, Yeah,
you put on a hat or something.
He's got Groucho Marx glasses, the one with the big nose, the glasses, and the mustache.
You'd have to.
That's what he's got.
Not step outside, literally.
Yeah, it's very difficult difficult because people know what you look like with a hat on. You're kind of famous for making the Yankee hat famous.
Disguises.
So you've already given your disguises away. I don't know what to do.
I was actually thinking of DJ Khaled when Brain Match was talking.
That would be hilarious.
He just has a good time.
Just for a week.
He just has the best time. He gets his kid on stage.
Oh, yeah.
And everything is just love.
There's just so many. Jimmy Iovine, Dr. Dre. I mean, any one of the, like, could you just imagine just being in their shoes
Dre for a week?
I was just thinking that too. Another billionaire.
You really have to pay attention.
You're right. These guys are all billionaires.
Soak in that knowledge quickly.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be Weird Al.
No.
Well done, Brave Mass.
Not me.
For
but
one night, it'd be kind of fun.
I'm not mad at anybody who wants
It
to
would be interesting, I'm sure. I mean, he's not stupid.
I just don't want to be Weird Al. I just don't want to be Weird Al and get out of the shower and have to look at myself in the mirror. That would be disturbing.
All right.
It's kind of funny though that I can't think of very many women I would want to.
You want to be for a week?
For a week.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to be Hillary Clinton for a week.
Yeah, I could pass on that one.
You could, but I'm just like,
I was sticking with Oprah. That's a way better way to go.
I just think of it would just be interesting to see it.
Yeah.
All right. And with that, we'll be right back.
Hey out there in podcast land, we would not be doing our duty if we didn't acknowledge the sponsors of the Loft Party Podcast, the Majestic Restaurant and Jazz Club, and the Majestic's Pendergast Club. The Majestic carries on Kansas City's tradition of great food and jazz. Let them show you why they are the classic Kansas City steakhouse experience. 931 Broadway, just 3 blocks from the Kansas City Convention Center. J. Rieger & Company, a Kansas City distillery. Whether whiskey, gin, or vodka, neat or on the rocks, J. Rieger, Kansas City, sipping good since 1887. C&P Construction, Kansas City's premier wood framers. 50 years of quality framing and craftsmanship. Just email david.cnpservice@gmail.com and start building something new today. And our friend and frequent guest, Lane Boland. Thank you all for all that you do.